All right, good morning, everybody. Happy New Year, January 2026. How's everybody's holidays? Jim, got it. Thank you.
I was on mute. Great holiday. Thanks, Chip. Hope
Good,
yours
good, good,
was.
good, good, good. Glad to hear that.
I
Santa
was
Claus,
a great holiday.
good. Love to
Happy
hear
New Year,
that.
everyone.
Happy
I'm
New
better.
Year. Happy New Year. Anybody have any one thing you want to share just in the last couple of weeks since we've met? Just any gratitude at all about your holiday or holiday break?
Just happy to be here.
Yeah, I got you.
I guess my main gratitude is that everybody left me alone so I could heal and get my voice back after 5 weeks.
There you go. Yeah, love that.
Now I can talk, Chip.
Rhonda, did you do that very well? All right, gang. Well, I know we're off to a little bit of a slow start here and kind of getting back into the routine of things. I appreciate everybody joining this morning. I know our last call of December before we broke for the year end, we spoke about kind of getting into this thing with the difference between months of supply of inventory, absorption rates, and all that. But I figured before we just jump right into all of that, there's a couple of things I wanted to kind of cover first because there's been a lot of data and information that's come out. Obviously, in the last 2 weeks, some of it was delayed information from when the government was shut down. So we got caught up on some of that information. Of course, we had a lot of amazing year-end information that came out. You move into the new year, everybody's starting to do their forecast models, and everybody's got predictions and crystal balls and all this stuff. But I did want to look at a couple of things because so here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about something called, have you guys heard of the phrase shadow inventory? You heard of shadow inventory?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. Yeah, shadow inventory was a big phrase we heard years ago, and after the financial crisis of '08, that became kind of a mainstream thing for us to look at for the next 3, 4, 5 years. And it really related to the banks and what they were holding in, foreclosed properties. And, there was literally millions of homes that had been foreclosed on that hadn't come into the market as active new listings. And there was a whole strategic reason why there was a controlled release of these properties, just so that the market wouldn't get flooded with available inventory. So we started to see. So here's the thing. One of the articles I read last week was talking about shadow inventory, but from a different perspective. In this case, it was talking about it from a perspective of withdrawn listings. So we're going to get into that a little bit deeper here in a moment, but let's talk about withdrawals for a moment. Typically, why does a seller withdraw?
House is not selling for the price they want.
Okay, they couldn't get the price they wanted. Yeah.
They couldn't find a home they wanted, so they decided to stay there.
Couldn't find the home they wanted, so they stayed.
Lack of results from their agent.
Lack of results from their agent. By the way, if I asked somebody, or if I really kind of went out and researched what are the top 3 reasons why a seller might withdraw their listing, we probably just heard the top 3. I'm not getting the price I wanted. Doesn't mean they're not getting offers. Might just be they're not getting the price that they thought that they could or should get. It could be that, yeah, I got offers, but the problem is I'm not really finding what I want, or maybe I can't find what I want, and therefore I'm afraid I'm going to get an offer. Or maybe it just is lack of results from the agent. The agent didn't help position them correctly in the market with the pricing, whatever, right? So those are probably our top 3. But let's think about these types of sellers for a moment. Are these sellers who withdraw, are they usually owner occupants, or are they usually investors?
Owner occupied.
Yep, a lot of them are owner occupied. A lot of them. Now, there are some instances where we do see strategies for sellers who are investors to sell properties, especially near the end of the year. There's some tax implications, some tax reasons why we're not getting into all of that on this call today. But typically what we have been finding is that the majority of withdrawn listings are from sellers who needed to sell. I want you to think about that for a minute because there's a clue. And then Sharon gave us another clue. So while initially it could start looking like we might have some shadow inventory just off of withdrawn listings, what might actually be showing up if we're strategic in how we think about information, and that's the purpose of why we do these calls. It's that learning opportunity, but it's also we want to start thinking strategically, right? So I could actually sit there and probably start creating a case for, yeah, maybe there's a little bit of shadow inventory. There's some pent-up demand. There was some demand that, now isn't available, but we knew that the person did want to sell. But what I might be really looking at is shadow demand. Because if people can't sell, can't get the price they want, didn't have the right agent, couldn't find the exact property they wanted, it doesn't mean they didn't want to buy. So the demand is there in two cases. It's a demand of a seller who wants to sell. There's a demand in there for a buyer who is also the seller who wants to buy. So we actually have this kind of delayed reaction in the market. And in this case, we're talking about two delayed transactions that did not happen in 25, but is the demand or the desire or the need or the want still there for 26? So I'm going to pause for a second and give you maybe a different perspective on how to look at things. What's your takeaway on that so far? Or where is your opportunity with that information? What could you do with that?
Hey, Chip.
Yeah.
Good morning and Happy New Year.
Hey, Charlene, how are you? Happy New Year.
Thank you. When I'm listening to this, it just makes me think of digging down and finding out what it would take for those sellers who do want to buy and do want to move, what it would take to get them to do so. I mean, this is what we do a lot, and a lot of times we're dealing with misinformation, and we just have to dig down and find out what it takes, and if it is the appropriate time and they can, typically we get them to move.
Absolutely. So how would you go about doing that, Charlene?
Well, we door knock folks that meet our criteria for expireds and withdrawns, and what we have found out is really a little bit of miscommunication about what the market is really doing. And it takes a matter of kind of being really honest with them and resetting their perspectives. And if it's possible, because it's not always the right time for everyone to be able to move, but we're able usually to reset that perspective, get them back in the market where they need to be, and then get them closed.
Yeah, I love it. So you're 100% correct. So sometimes the information they got, they talked to somebody and went through the process of listing their house, right? So then that price that was set for the listing was determined by information. Now, whether or not it was realistic information, whether or not that information was interpreted correctly to the seller, whether or not that maybe agent that listed it in the past did the right job to really determine what it is they're trying to accomplish and when they're trying to get it accomplished by. Unless all of these things come into an alignment, we can have, there will be typically a chance that that listing won't find success. So therefore, the homeowner doesn't find success. But does that eliminate the need for why they even list it? So here's some information for you guys to consider. I went back just for the heck of it. I wanted to let's look at withdrawn listings in the fourth quarter of 24 versus the fourth quarter of 25. Just withdrawn. I didn't put any other criteria in. And I simply just looked at Mecklenburg County. That was it. So Mecklenburg withdrawn, final 3 months, final 3 months. There was about a 34% increase in 25 versus 24 in the amount of withdrawn listings. And it was close to 1,000. Just in the fourth quarter, just in Mecklenburg County on withdrawn listings. So let's go back to everything we've been talking about. There were close to 1,000 people that haven't had a need and a desire to list their house because they were doing something else. And therefore, because they got misinformation or weren't given the proper information that showed what it's going to take for them to find success at getting their home sold in the market, what happened? Their need did not become a reality. So does that just simply mean that the need gets wiped away? No, it doesn't. Is there a strong likelihood that people are going to say, well, you know what, I'll wait until after the new year. Let's get through the holidays. Maybe I'd be better off listing in the spring. Maybe everybody now is going to craft their own idea around finding success in the market on the next round. And it doesn't mean that, well, there's just 1,000 potential listings that just went away and won't come back. There are a portion of those that won't. That's okay. Charlene gave us that earlier. She goes, it's not always the right time. We get that. But, you know, guys, let's even assume that maybe there was a 50, 60%, you know, half to maybe 2/3 of these people are going to still make the decision to relist their house because their need is greater than what the market conditions are at the moment. They're just going to try to do what? Strategize the best way. So it's now a great opportunity for us to be educating about what the market's doing, how the market performs at various times of the year, why waiting until spring may not be in their best interest, what does even spring even mean or represent? If they could pick their ideal closing date, when would it be? What if we just started proposing some questions that just got us into deeper levels of communication with people? Isn't that why we have a real estate license? Isn't this why we're in this business? We're here to help people, right? So I really wanted to consider, because 2026, if we looked at national numbers on this, there was something like 150,000 listing units that went, that were withdrawn. And I don't even think it was the full, what I read again last week. I remember the number 150,000 withdrawn listings. And this is a national number now, but it wasn't even in the fourth quarter. I want to say it was just a month in November. So if we start thinking about some things that are in alignment right now, where are interest rates typically hovering right now? 6.5, 6.25.
6.2.
What was it, Jim?
6.2.
6.2, even better. Great. Let's go buy a house. All right. So we're slightly above 6. And we've seen a huge uptick in the final quarter of the year in terms of pending sales compared to the beginning of 25. So just because rates at the beginning of 25 are running, over 6.5, now they're at the, say, 6.25 level, probably a 0.5 percentage point spread in the interest rates has driven up that much demand that there were 3.3% increase in pending sales in the final 60 days, 45 days of 2025, pending. People want to buy a house. If I go back and I try to find who is my logical buyer is probably the person that tried to sell. This is the opportunity. This is one of the key things that the MREA book talks about all the time is leads, listings, leverage. If you want leverage, go get listings, because getting listings means I'm probably building in an automatic buyer into my, imagine going on a listing appointment and walking out with 2 agreements. Listing agreement, buyer agreement, 2 sales, 2 units. It's leverage, guys. It's leverage. Whatever your unit goal is for the year, you want to go close 30 units, go take 16, go just simply take 16 to 17 listings. That'll take care of your buy side deals. I promise you. All right. So we heard a strategy from Jim and Charlotte. We know they do some door knocking. Theirs is a strategy around withdrawals and expireds. They attack that group, not attack, but they go after that group via door knocking, but they have a strategy that is around geographical and price point. Is that correct, guys?
Yeah, we do attack.
Yeah, attack is probably.
Yeah, well, I was trying to be nice. January, what's 5? We won't attack until January 10, but anyways. All right, so you guys do some door knocking in that category, but you're still strategic. You're just not randomly going off against everybody. What else could we be doing to get in front of this group? This group of withdrawn sellers.
Other than door knocking, calling them?
Yeah, we could call them, absolutely.
I think you have
Now,
to,
here's what I'm going to say about calling first. Please check the do not call registry. Make certain their phone numbers are not on the do not call registry. If they are and you call them and they get mad and they want to file a complaint, you're the one paying for it and E&O insurance does not cover it. And that could be a costly fine. That's just my caveat warning on that. Could you mail them? Could you send them a mailer? Sure.
You could do some targeted social media.
Social media, thank you, Dave. We could find them, could we DM them in social media?
You know, Chip, we also get, it's odd, but we get in front of these expired or withdrawn sellers by hosting open houses too.
There you go. Yeah, we all know that sellers visit open houses, right? Not just buyers. Please keep that in mind for 2026. Great strategy for getting in front of future sellers is to host open houses. What else could we be doing? All right, here's a strategy. I want you guys to think about any leads you currently have. People that at some level have reached out to you and said, hey, 2026, we're thinking about X. We're thinking about buying, we're thinking about selling. It could be a lead that has gone as deep as having a conversation with you. Maybe they haven't started the process yet. Maybe they haven't committed to you in terms of your level of like relationship, working relationship. They haven't signed any sort of agency relationship with you yet, but you've had a conversation where they said, yeah, well, this is what we're really thinking about doing. And we want to sell, we want to buy, here's where we live, this is what we're thinking, this is our timing. You've had that level of it, or maybe you're in the process with somebody, just haven't got to the date yet. Okay, maybe they signed their agency relationship. So I want you to think about all of the different levels of leads that you potentially have. And I want you to make 2 lists of these leads. One side is your seller list, one side is your buyer. Now you're going to find commonality perhaps between both. You could have the Smiths, for example, are going to sell and buy. That's great. You put them on the sell side and you put them on the buy side. But I want you to qualify everybody into a seller side or a buyer side with an idea of timing. So here's the thing. At the end of this, here's what you do at the bottom of the page. You go, okay, the value of all of these potential sellers is X amount of listing volume. And the value of all of these buyer leads at the bottom is X amount of dollar value of buyer volume. I want you to see this, number one, in your own world. This is your future-based opportunity income, and I want you to see what that number is. against what you're thinking about for your goal, or if your goal is on paper, you set the goal already, you're already working towards your goal. Either way, you're identifying, here's where I'm at with my leads, here's where I'm at with where I want to go, here's the gap in between. So this is kind of a secondary piece of this. But I really want you to start thinking about what your buyers are looking for. Because there's a possibility you may, if you have enough seller leads, you may have something that's off market on your seller list. In other words, they haven't listed the property yet, but you know of a potential seller who wants to sell. And is there somebody on the buy side that may fit the profile for what the seller has and vice versa? In this case, you might be able to create some of your own market. At the same time, what if you were able to say, look, I have a list of potential off-market properties, and you use that as a way to get into conversation with not just simply future buyers and sellers, but perhaps some of these people we're talking about with this shadow demand. If I had a list of even 10 or 12 people that were considering listing their house this year, they haven't done it yet. But out there, there's a buyer that's waiting for that listing to come on the market. I want you to think about that one for a second. So you're starting to create your own demand for your buyer pool. So that way we're not just sitting there waiting for that ideal listing to come on the market via the MLS. And that's what we're doing as the job for our buyers. Am I out there talking to enough people? Am I identifying people who potentially want to sell in 2026? And I'm using that to attract buyers, but I'm also using it as a way to find the right home for buyers and not just simply waiting for another agent to list the ideal property. For me, 2026, I think, is going to be a big year of opportunity for all of us. It's also the year, because we're starting off the new year, we're starting off fresh going into 26. I think it's the year that we change our thinking even slightly on how we do the business in a way that we're being a lot more proactive versus reactive. If you're known as somebody that can put information together and bring people together in a way that helps a seller get what they want, a buyer gets what they want, that's ultimately where we get paid. That's what we're designed to do. That's what our industry is designed to do. That's how we're trained. This is how we get paid. But I don't know about you guys. I'm tired of waiting for other people to do things so that I can maybe find something that will help this person. I'm not saying that, the ideal property isn't going to just go pop up on the MLS. But I just want to change our thinking slightly going into this year. All right. What are your thoughts, comments, questions before we wrap up today? Any ahas in this?
I think the big aha, Chip, is just the sheer volume of withdrawals versus last year. You see it, but you don't really feel it until you you don't really realize the expanse of it until you put the numbers out there.
Yeah. And seeing, still, to be honest, 1,000 is a lot, but not really a lot. It's not a market changing number. It's a goal changing number. There's enough opportunity for us. And if we just had that deeper understanding as to why, now we can take the information and go educate people and show them the path of how they can still make their need happen and become a reality. That's all we want. Is just we just want to get our at bat with people. Show them how we can help. So in that case, Jim, yeah, huge opportunity.
And there's a great opportunity with the amount of pendings being up as well as to part of your conversation with these folks to get them back on the market.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I was going to say. You almost have to re-spark that buyer's interest that needs to sell and talk about the opportunities of buying and how sellers are interested in doing closing costs and doing repairs and all the things. And there's more inventory because they may graduate on the buy side of what they may be losing on the sell side. So you almost have to get the motivation re-sparked.
Well, yeah, Sharon, if you think, and thank you for that too. You know, if you think about it, guys, in this case, we're talking about the shadow demand. We had a seller who was going to be a buyer. The real motivation is in the buying, it's not in the selling. There was a reason they were going to go buy the house they were going to buy. The need to sell the house was just part of the process. So the real motivation is still on the reason why they wanted that new house they wanted. All right, gang, that's what I had for you guys today. So here's what we'll do next week. We will start diving into a little bit more of the shadow inventory, or not the shadow inventory, sorry. The months of supply of inventory, absorption rate. That way, you know, we're kind of getting a better feel for their different numbers that kind of give us the same information, but they're really telling us two entirely different things, but they can work hand in hand in a really great way so that we can help in this education process with these folks that weren't given the right information about the market. All right, gang, appreciate y'all being here as always. Anything we can do, please let us know. Talk to everybody soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.